Welcome back to the MCU Exchange Podcast. We're going to be talking about the ABC Upfronts and the news about what's happening with Inhumans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this fall. We've got some things from Kevin Feige, some stuff from Defenders, and we're going to go over Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as always. Our big conversation for the night is comic book storylines that we think should make it into Phase 4. Got a packed show for you. This is the MCU Exchange Podcast, and I am Iron Man. Welcome back to another episode of MCU Exchange Podcast. I'm Caleb. We've got Rhiannon and Adam with us, as always. And this week we're going to be talking a lot about television and the upfronts from ABC. But before we get into all that, I thought I would make a little announcement that I think we can make. Rhiannon and I have just found out this week that we are going to be at New York Comic Con. So we're hoping to do some kind of podcasting, something. Maybe we'll Skype in Adam to make him feel really jealous.
Nice.
And hopefully we'll do some other cool features from the floor or something. I don't know. We're still figuring out what it looks like. But
it's a long ways away.
Yeah, it's October. So if you're going to be there at the Comic-Con and you're not a total creep, let us know on Twitter. And maybe we'll figure out if you're a creep or not, and then we'll say hi to you at the Comic-Con. So Rhiannon's like, we did not agree to this ahead of time. What are you doing?
That's not how you vet creeps, Caleb.
Oh, it's not. If you tell them ahead of time, they don't, self-identify? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Okay.
Learned that one the hard way. Sorry. No, just kidding to all the people I've met.
All right, let's go into our ABC Upfronts news. So, for those that don't know, the networks every May go through this process where they share with advertisers their upcoming schedule and what shows are coming out and trailers for new shows and all that kind of stuff. And ABC presented this week with all the other major broadcast networks. And we got a little bit of news on Inhumans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The first thing that we found out is that both shows are going to be airing on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Some people have reacted pretty poorly to this. I'll be honest, I was one of them at first as well. Friday night is not known as a great night. It's kind of known as a dumping yard in some people's minds of where TV shows go. When they kind of get old and get bad ratings, you put them on Friday nights because you got to put something there, but you don't want to really put good shows up against people going out to dinner and movies and stuff like that. And so that didn't seem like great news. We also got news that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will air after Inhumans finishes their 8-episode run. We don't know exactly what that looks like. Hypothetically, that could mean that the week after Inhumans is over, we'll get like a little mini pod before Christmas, and then we'll jump back in the late winter. It could also mean that they'll just wait until January sometime, and we'll get all 22 episodes straight. That would require for them to double up and give us, 2 episodes a night, 2 or 3 times. But we don't know yet. So, Rhiannon, Adam, how are you guys feeling about this? Does this bother you at all that we've moved to Friday nights? I feel like you felt very strongly about this at first, Adam.
Yeah. I mean, I've been telling people if I had a life outside comics, I'd be totally pissed right now. But fortunately enough, I'll be stuck watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on Friday nights anyways. I don't know. It just seems... has any good show ever stayed alive on Friday nights, I guess? I mean, I'm trying to think of shows I've watched in the past. You got Sunday nights that shows are good, on the weekend. But Friday or Saturday nights, especially Inhumans, you're starting Inhumans off on Friday night. It just kind of feels like, how do they want it to succeed? I can see S.H.I.E.L.D. because it's entering its 5th season, and it's at the point where they, want to get the 5 seasons and 100 episodes in, whatever. But for a show to start on Friday nights, that's going to be pretty rough.
Yeah, the one exception I keep seeing on, Twitter and our comment section is X-Files blew up on Friday nights. But I would remind all the people making those comments, that also happened 20 years ago or something like that, like that's reaching back a bit, if we're going to go to X-Files.
Well, yeah, I mean, that goes to my first thought, because my first thought was, as a kid, there was TGIF, like where Full House and Urkel, Family Matters, like they were all on Friday nights. Like, I don't know, when I was a kid and I had no life, Friday nights I would sit in front of the TV and watch some of that, like straight through. And really, it's not like a ton of people are watching S.H.I.E.L.D. live now anyways. So maybe they've, just given up on a large live viewership. Maybe they've done their research and they know that their comic book fans have no lives. I don't know. I would be a little insulted. Except I tend to really want TV on Friday nights. I'm excited because I'm more likely to watch it live at 9 o'clock on Friday than I ever am at 10 o'clock on Thursday.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Maybe they've decided that Inhumans is going to be the type of thing that people will stay in to watch. Maybe it's going to be an event type thing that carries a Friday night? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, my take on this is it's not as bad as I first feared. Because I do think that they're going to pair it with Once Upon a Time to make kind of a fantasy sci-fi block on Friday nights. And, I wrote about this on the website. Not a lot of people. The same people that don't like everything didn't like what I said. But basically, like, it makes some sense to put that into a block. And if you do look, historically, Friday night is an okay spot for genre shows, particularly sci-fi, comic, etc. And so, I mean, if you look at people who have done all right on Friday nights, X-Files did do okay. And once Fringe had kind of gotten down to smaller viewership, the last 2 or 3 seasons of Fringe were on Friday nights. And NBC ran Grimm. It's not a show I ever watched, but it ran for like 4 years on Friday night. And it seemed like all of those shows were kind of similar genre to what we're going to get out of Inhumans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they all worked okay in that time frame. That's fine. I would just say let's acknowledge what ABC's doing then. And what they're doing is that they are already looking at Inhumans as a niche genre show that might fit well on Friday nights with sci-fi audiences. They are not looking at this as a major blockbuster show that's going to reach across demographics. If they thought that this thing was going to be gigantic or huge, they would have put it on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m., the way they did with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. back when they thought Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to ride, the Avengers wave to being a, blockbuster show. And that doesn't mean it's going to be a bad show, and it doesn't mean we're not going to love it. I think there's other reasons why I think I might not love it, but it doesn't mean that it'll be bad. It just means that ABC does not believe in this as a across the board, multi-generational, men, women, kids, old people. Like, they do not see this as a show with broad appeal. They see it as a show that has a niche market similar to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Once Upon a Time. And that's just a little disappointing. When we heard that IMAX was going to do this stuff, I don't know. There was hope that it would be bigger than that, I think. And I don't think it's a bad thing or a pessimistic thing for people to say, oh, I'd hoped that this show would be a bigger thing culturally, but I'll still enjoy it personally. Like, I think that's a natural enough reaction to have. So there was also a little bit of footage that was shown for Inhumans, and we have not seen it. It has not made it to the internet. If you dig around some of the darker corners of Twitter and Reddit, apparently there are some images from that first kind of trailer. I'm not going to talk much about it because for me it's way too grainy to have a positive or negative assessment of what I'm seeing. I'll kind of wait until they give me something quality, and I kind of want to respect the studios too. I think there's a reason they don't put this stuff out. Are you guys disappointed that we haven't seen whatever they saw at the upfront? Or are you glad that maybe they're keeping it back if the visual effects aren't quite ready yet?
I'm not upset to not see anything. I kind of, when the teaser for Guardians was only the audio, I didn't expect to have a whole lot more this soon.
For Inhumans?
So, Yeah.
Oh, okay. The teaser was on Guardians. I get what you're saying.
Sorry.
That's all right.
For our listeners, I've had like a crazy cold this week, so I'm putting thoughts together. But yeah, the teaser that we had before Guardians, I didn't expect something else so soon. I would have been excited to see it, but I'm fine to wait another couple of weeks, maybe.
I mean, first look at Triton, right? But yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I expected through. I don't know. You know, I really don't. I'm trying to think if I have expectations for the show. You know, I mean, I know of the Inhumans, you know, but, you know, I'm not the Inhumans expert like you, so, I mean, it's not good nor bad. It's kind of what I expected, you know, you have the cliche, whole dining room table that's a mile long or whatever, the whole royal thing, and the second picture is kind of, that must be Maximus between the king and queen there. So I wonder if he's exiling them or exiling them. Yeah. Between the three pictures, you know, it is like a Game of Thrones type vibe, and then the last picture's kind of giving me some like Lost type vibe. It looks like they're in the jungle or something, so that must be in Hawaii, since Adelan probably doesn't have a jungle.
Who knows? we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think it's I'm really excited for a trailer. I mean, like I've said before, if our listeners don't know, I love this property. And so anything I've said negatively, I hope that I'm totally wrong. And I will be the happiest man on earth if you comment in and tweet at me and heckle me for how wrong I got this, because that means I just enjoyed a great show of Inhumans, you know? But we'll just still have to see. It's been kind of a weird ride, the way it was announced and then the rollout and everything. So, all right, moving on to somewhat happier news. Kevin Feige talked to a company that does some like visual effects work for them, and they did a little YouTube video where he talked about his history in the industry and a few other questions about the MCU. And it was interesting because he talked about bringing X-Men and or Fantastic Four into the MCU. And we don't want to make too much of this. He didn't say, yeah, it's happening tomorrow. But he does say, of course, we'd like to do that. My goal is to replicate the experience that comic book fans have reading the books up on the screen. And we've been able to accomplish that beyond my wildest dreams over the last 10 years by including Spidey in Civil War and the upcoming Infinity War. That was yet another dream I didn't even dare to talk about publicly, because I thought the odds were slim. So no plans beyond that for the few remaining characters that aren't already in the MCU, but never say never. Who knows what can happen in the future. As early as last fall, he used the word impossibility to describe X-Men and Fantastic Four coming in. There's a big difference between that's impossible and, you know, never say never. Do you think that there's anything to this, or... I mean, at the very least, he's changing his rhetoric a little bit, right?
Definitely.
The biggest thing, I think, I mean, we're getting Fantastic Four before X-Men. You know, I don't think we get the X-Men without Fantastic Four, because, I mean, they give up the rights to X-Men or whatever, you know. They get rid of Deadpool and Cable, and those are the two main characters that are pretty much basing their whole entire universe off at this point, you know, in the future. Yeah, I don't know. I would guess they're probably ending up going to probably do a Deadpool 3 eventually, you know. But I would say, I mean, what are the contract rules? They have to make a movie every, 8 years or something like that?
Yeah, I think I heard recently that it, like 2022 is the cutoff. Like, either that it has to be released by then or it has to be in production by 2022.
So, you know, I mean, once we get past through the slate that we're on now, I mean, theoretically that would be a good hopping on point for, you know, introducing a huge Thanos type villain like Galactus or something of the Kang, you know, of that nature. But yeah, I mean, I think no matter which way you look at it, I mean, we all want to see Hugh play Wolvie in the MCU, you know, but I think we would see Fantastic Four a lot earlier than we would see any of the X-Men characters.
Yeah, I've actually become convinced, and this is really different from what I used to think, but I've actually become convinced that the X-Men in the MCU might not be the best thing. Like, after seeing Logan, if they can give us a movie as good as Logan, and, you know, frankly, Deadpool. I'm not a huge Deadpool fan, but I get why that was so popular. You know, if they can do movies like that, and that's what they're going to crank out over at Fox, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have a couple studios working on movies of properties I love. So that's fine. The thing is that they can't do a good Fantastic Four film. I said in my review, I felt like Guardians of the Galaxy, both Volume 1 and 2, in many ways are exactly what a Fantastic Four movie should be, as far as like a cosmic adventure that deals with the dynamics of family. You know, James Gunn has kind of proven that Marvel can do a Fantastic Four movie. Why not, you know, let it happen in the MCU? So anyway, again, no confirmation by any means of these conspiracy theories we see online. It's obvious that Feige is not talking as harshly about that opportunity as he was even 6 months ago. And so who knows if that's the context of the interview or whatever, but it was interesting. All right, I want to pull up a few Defenders things now. These are all things that were talked about at the recent Houston Comic-Con. Former podcast of the MCUExchange, it's all connected, had one of their guys, Russ, down there in Houston, and he went to a panel, and he picked up some tidbits that he passed on to us that Charles has been publishing throughout the week. And what we've got is a couple interesting things. First of all, we found out that the plot of Defenders will take place over just a couple days. And so it's not only a shortened 8 episodes, but, you know, something like Daredevil Season 2 takes like 6 months to happen. Whereas this show is going to happen over 48, 72 hours, something like that. Also, we found out Madame Gao is definitely returning, which makes me very happy. And also, Mike Coulter said that he hopes we'll see Luke Cage Season 2 early next year, which is really interesting because, Adam, you heard him say they're filming through March or something. So I don't know how early it could be if they're still filming into March, but anyway, any thoughts on any of that stuff? Rhiannon, you love our Netflix stuff. Does any of that pique your interest?
Well, a friend of mine joked this week that I think Mike Coulter is just screwing with us, like, constantly. I think he's just throwing stuff out there. I don't see any way that Luke Cage comes out before Jessica Jones Season 2, because Jessica Jones has a couple months head start on filming, which means they'll have a head start on finishing filming, which means, I mean, everything so far has come out in order of filming. Unless they are doing something completely new with the timeline. Or, you know, like you said, they're doing half seasons, or they're doing mixing things in with each other. I think Mike is just saying things. Like, he'd like to see it early next year. Yeah, and I'd like to see, like, 1 season of every character next year and another team up. So that's, yeah, I think Gao, everybody assumed she was coming back, but it's exciting to have that confirmed. I haven't had any time to process the idea of the Defenders happening over a few days. I mean, there's a lot of relationship building that has to happen in this show for it just to happen over a few days. And I know they've said that they're not going to come out of this buddy-buddy, you know, that they're not going to all suddenly be a perfect team. But, I mean, just trusting each other enough to do the hallway fight that we've seen in the trailer, to me, takes more than a day or two of knowing each other. I'll be excited to see how it goes. I know Charles on the website is really excited about it being tight, that really tight schedule or that really tight timeline means it won't just drag onto storylines that we don't care about.
Compared to the Defenders, I mean, look at Daredevil Season 1, Season 2, Jessica Jones, you know, I guess... What are the timelines on the... I guess I haven't paid that much close attention to notice. Is Daredevil over a month? Is it 2 months? You know? I guess I really haven't...
So, Season 2, I think, is the easiest to note. because I don't know if you remember, it's like sweltering hot at the beginning, and then the last scene is like Karen's newspaper article at like Christmas time. So that's like obviously a 6-month span. So that's the one I remember. I don't remember the other ones too well. I just finished Daredevil season 1, and at least it has to be at least a couple weeks, if not a couple of months. Just because you see like daytime and nighttime over and over, you know, like pass many times.
And season 1, Daredevil season 1 goes from summer to winter as well. You know, like in the early days, they're all running around in shorts outside and stuff, and in the end, they're in the scarf and outside and all bundled up at the cemetery. So I've had in my head that each of the series was about 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think that we've talked about this before. Netflix timeline is not as tight as we'd like it to be anyway, so it's probably better not to poke around that too much. So I think that'll do it for our news. Let's move on to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I'm not sure what we're going to do next week. We usually talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for 10 or 15 minutes each week, and we're not going to have that now because the season finale was this week. It was really twisty and turny, and lots of things that we weren't expecting to happen happened. There's a lot to process. Let's start off just by talking about this episode and the conclusion of the Ada storyline and the framework storyline. And then we can talk about kind of the stinger and the setting up of next season in a minute. But as far as the stuff related to season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., what did you guys really like? What did you not like in this week's episode?
I felt like the Ada storyline, like it came to this big climax. I feel like it moved very quickly to the end in this episode. You know, we very quickly, oh, here's Ghost Rider. Oh, he can kill her. Oh, she's dead. And I realized there were more twists in that. I loved the twist that Phil had the writer inside of him. And I'm sure we'll find out more about that in the future. If there's a disappointment in this episode, that's it. That it just sort of, that felt, for a character who was so strong. I mean, Ada, Ophelia, Agnes, whoever, she was such a big part of this season. I don't know, I kind of expected a bigger surprise on how she went in the end.
Yeah, I want to take just a minute to say that I think Mallory Jensen, I think that's her name, the actress who played those characters, she needs to be getting a lot of jobs from here on out. I mean, because, you know, I mean, we saw, not to throw shade on Agent Ward, but we saw Brett Dalton play several different characters over the time on the show, and he did an okay job differentiating them. But I have never seen someone who in one season, I mean, she was Ada, and then she was Agnes, and then she was kind of the Madam Hydra, and then there was like about 30 minutes of sort of reborn human for the first time, wide-eyed, you know, optimistic Ophelia, and then there was, you know, crazy jealous Ophelia. And she did all of those things very differently. I mean, her face looked different and her voice sounded different. I just felt like she was very impressive in the things that she did. And so I hope she gets a lot of opportunities after this, because I thought she was really fabulous throughout. You know, there was a real chance that they could have hired someone who, you know, Ada's supposed to be relatively attractive. They could have hired someone mostly for the look, but they actually got someone with some acting chops. And so I think she deserves all the credit in the world for that.
Oh, man, it was awesome. I mean, I think they knocked the visual effects out of the park on this one. The Ghost Rider Quake combo move to kick off the show was amazing. Then Ghost Rider has his own, what do we call it, a sling chain? Or what do we call it, you know? Now
yeah.
Straight out of Doctor Strange. I thought that was really cool.
And it's the perfect kind of connectedness.
It is.
That we want, right? Like, that was something that didn't confuse people that didn't see Doctor Strange, but those of us who did were like, oh, it's the same thing, you know? Like, it was obviously the same effect.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, I would rather have that than them say the incident or something, you know? Because, you know, you're like, oh, okay, that's Doctor Strange, you know. But yeah, that's really cool. Mallory Jansen was good. I mean, throughout the whole season, she was absolutely amazing. Even within the span of the past 3 episodes, where she was Madam Hydra, then she was human, kind of sane, and then she was insane human. And she even physically looked different during those 3 things, those 3 different roles. I guess my only complaint was, they killed Ada really, really quick, even though the best person possible killed him. # Coulson Rider.
And I loved that twist. And I think it was a great way to bring Ghost Rider back, but it just, yeah.
Now, I feel like they were building a Ghost Rider Quake kind of relationship. It was like that moment where she's like, I'm glad you're back. Are you into that? Or could we just let Daisy be single for half a minute? Or what do you guys think of that development?
Well, it looks like she is single. He obviously, it didn't go anywhere. I think it's an interesting, I think it's a good pair. I don't think either of, I like the idea of Daisy being single for a moment. And I'm so caught up on the idea that I guess you guys put in my head of Daisy being the next head of S.H.I.E.L.D. If there even is a S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, and if it'll have a head, and we'll talk about where it's going later. But, yeah. Yeah,
that combo move you're talking about, if we could just get a legit, they tease Secret Warriors, and I probably have said this 8 times on the podcast, if we could get a legit, superhero team with Quake and Ghost Rider and Deathlock and Yo-Yo, it would be so good just to have the powers and have them together all the time. Maybe it makes it more special that it's more sparse, but I don't know. And I'm sure it's a budget thing too. But it would just be cool if it was, instead of them sprinkled, that if we had a show that was a team of superheroes. But all right, so let's then get to the end. So once the main part of the episode concluded, it actually reminded me an old episode of 24. They used to do this in their season finales where they would wrap up the season about the halfway point of the finale, and you just get this feeling in your gut okay, I still have 15 minutes of this show. They're about to set me up for next season. And they sure did. The team is kind of on the run again, and then all of a sudden there's this weird X-Files moment in a diner where either time stops or they get frozen, and there's a 2-minute window to extract them. And the next thing we know, Coulson is waking up in space. Just, Adam, your immediate reaction. Were you jumping off the couch when you saw that we were going into outer space with this team?
Yeah, the first words I uttered were, holy shit. It was damn, what a space. They were on a different planet before, but, it didn't feel like it was it felt like it was a different planet, but it didn't feel outer space-y, It was like a desert, and now they're in outer space watching asteroids go by their window. So I'm very interested to see where they go, especially with the most popular speculated group, apparently, to everyone's knowledge, the rights don't belong to Marvel Studios / Marvel TV. So unless they did the backroom type deal, trading rights and stuff like that, who knows? But outside of S.H.I.E.L.D., I really don't have any idea on what they can be doing in outer space.
I like the way you changed your pronunciation of that to
I didn't even mean to do that. I just said
so that definitely.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, you totally.
No, you're good. We were thinking that maybe it was a Ward reference. That was getting.
How do you say it? Sword?
Yeah.
Sword?
Yeah.
Sword?
Yeah, I don't pronounce the W at all, but
I don't know.
Sword. Oh, sword. Okay. Sword.
That's
Whatever.
okay.
No, it's just his desire
even
to throw
subconsciously,
we're
trying to bring Ward back.
What's going on with me
now? He's just Ward,
okay. So
Ward.
it reminds me of this comic storyline where there was this alternate Earth on the other side of the sun, so we couldn't see it. They rotated at the same rate we rotate, so we didn't know it was there. And what if there was an alternate Earth and Ward's still alive? It would be another way for them to bring back Ward. I really am wondering, now that we have a 5th season, are we going to get? It'll be weird to have a season without him, but it'll also be refreshing in a way. Rhiannon, are you excited about space?
Well, I mean, I feel like you guys for weeks have been in other contexts saying, are you excited about space? And the one thing that's made me excited about, the one thing that has made me excited about space in the movies is that it set up that explanation for the lack of continuity with the TV shows. So as soon as Coulson woke up and it was like, space, I was like, oh my gosh, that was the one thing that explained the lack of continuity. And now you've gone to space. Way to go, Coulson. You've gonna make me wonder why you're not running into Groot and why we're not seeing, crossover with Infinity War and stuff. And maybe they are. Maybe they're setting up some major crossover, but that was the one thing that I was cool with the movie side going to space, because then all of the TV stuff could remain on Earth, and they had that nice separation, yet could still all conceivably be in the same universe. So yeah, I don't know how I feel right now.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the obvious bookends that they could play into is Inhumans on the front end. It would be kind of cool for the Inhumans storyline to dovetail into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm guessing there's no reason why, Karnak could not make a special appearance on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they'll wrap production on Inhumans about the time they start up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think. So that would be a cool tie-in. Could definitely see ABC putting a bug in Whedon's ear, Jed Whedon that is, and saying, listen, this is your last go. Could you guys make this tie into Infinity War? And I think it would be really cool if somehow they had something that set up something that was going to happen in Infinity War, and that, for whatever reason, was kind of the climax of the show. I think that would work and be all right. So I'm really interested. I'm actually more interested in the people that abducted them. Like, that was very weird. It reminded me of the last episode of Legion, actually. Like, I just don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about it like Legion, but yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, do you think it could be the Inhumans? I mean, any sort of Inhumans thing?
At first, I wondered if that bald guy was Karnak, but I rewatched it, and it's not the same voice, it's not the same actor as Karnak. And he's wearing a suit, and I don't know. It doesn't look quite right to be Inhumans, but it could be. I don't have any idea. It strikes me as more likely that it's something Earth-based that's wanting to protect Earth from aliens or whatever. So we'll just have to see. Our main discussion today is we thought it'd be fun to look at comic book storylines from that we've read through the years that we would love to see happen in the MCU in the next films and TV shows that are to come. As Rhiannon mentioned, she is not feeling great. So Rhiannon, I'm going to get yours. I think you had one idea you wanted to talk about, and then I will let you get to bed. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, guys. Well, and we're looking at the whole MCU here. And I think this one has been mentioned a million times, but it is definitely that in Daredevil season 3, I want to see Born Again. I want to see Fisk take Matt Murdock down. I want to see him just break him down piece by piece by piece, and then I want to see Matt Murdock rise back up. Which is basically Born Again. And I can totally see Fisk going that route from where we last saw him in Daredevil. And that's my one little contribution. I mean, I've as I was saying when we were planning, like, I do have, like, comics. At some point, I mapped out, like, full comic reference of what I'd like to see in Daredevil Season 3. But that's the starting point.
Yeah, we should mention, there probably will be spoilers for comic books in this. So if you have some comic storyline that you don't want to read, or you want to read without knowing, turn back now. I was thinking that it's kind of cool. So Born Again begins when Karen Page gives away his identity because she gets in some difficult situation. I think it would
She's a heroin addict.
Yes, right. I think it'd be interesting if Kingpin finds out about Wesley, that she shot Wesley, and that's the pinch point. He like comes to her and says, I know you killed my friend. I will let you go. I will not take your life if you can tell me everything you know about Daredevil. Like he's kind of caught on that she's somehow connected, and Karen folds and gives Matt's identity away. For those of you who only watch the Netflix shows, that might not sound like Karen, but it sounds a whole lot like comic book Karen, I think. So, anyway, I think that would be an interesting setup for that show.
Except I think Fisk already knows. I think Fisk has already put it together that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. I think he's just going to piece it together on his own. The Karen tension, I would want... And this is where I get Born Again and one of the other storylines mixed up, but as far as Matt Murdock being completely outed to the presses, there's a storyline where Ben Urich steps up and is like, oh no, Matt Murdock is not Daredevil. I want Karen to be around, and I want Karen to be able to have that role.
Right.
Where Ellison is all upset that they didn't break that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and Karen's able to go, oh no, I really know who Daredevil is, and it's not Matt Murdock.
I was rewatching the first season of the show, and I noticed that the priest in the show figures out that he's Daredevil really quick, and Murdock's like, how did you know? And the priest is like, I'm not an idiot. I put 2 and 2 together. Like, I'm paying attention. And I know that he knows a little bit about Matt from Confession that other people wouldn't, but I did think it's really funny that the priest thinks it's obvious that Murdock is Daredevil and nobody else suspects it at all. It just kind of made me chuckle when I saw that in that scene, you know?
Well, and that's one of my favorite things about the comics that it appears they're doing in the show, too, is that Matt Murdock being Daredevil is like the worst kept secret ever.
Right.
It's you know, throughout the comics, everybody knows that he's Daredevil, which is probably why, like, Charles Soule had to do what he did on the most recent run. So I like that the show is heading that way as well. Yeah, because we already have Frank that knows. We already have Karen knowing. Foggy, Lantham, probably Fisk. A lot of people know.
All right, Rhiannon, that's great. Me and Adam will take it from
night,
here.
Guys.
Go get some rest.
Thanks. Have a good one.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, man, I've got a little list, but you go ahead and start us off. What's a comic book storyline you'd like to see in the future of Marvel?
Comic book storyline. The one that instantly popped in my head, you know, when we were talking about this and with the future of the Inhumans are coming and S.H.I.E.L.D's renewed, I wouldn't mind seeing like an Infinity / Inhumanity type storyline, especially between the 2 episodes. So in my thought process behind this, you know, I was thinking, well, we kind of got this when the Terrigen was released into the ocean with the fishes and stuff, right? So I'm not sure if they would do this, but, you know, I thought it would just be interesting if Black Bolt gets a feather up his butt and eventually, you know, detonates the Terrigen bomb, and that'll go through, and that's an easy enough carry through where essentially Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are left to deal with the pieces. Obviously, I think I just talked myself out of it after going through the fish thing, but that was the first thing on my list. Do you want to alternate, or you just want me to go through?
Yeah, let's alternate. Okay. That sounds good. So, one of them on my list is the Thor storyline about the God Butcherer.
Nice.
It's if you haven't read this, it's a great storyline where Thor is being hunted by this kind of cosmic being who likes to just go around. Marvel obviously has all these different pantheons of gods that exist in the real world. So there's the Asgardian gods, there's all the gods of Olympus, and there's even in Moon Knight there's kind of a connection to some of the Egyptian gods. So this guy is going around, and his deal is that he just kills gods. Like, that's what he's into, to kill deities from different, you know, religions or whatever. And so he comes after Thor, and in order to defeat him, there's like 3 versions of Thor. There's like young Thor and Thor as we know him, and like old Odin version of Thor. and they kind of team up together, and it's kind of a bizarre storyline. It requires some time travel and all that kind of stuff, but it's a lot of fun. It's really the only Thor comic that I've ever liked reading. Like, I just I enjoy it a lot. So anyways, I think that would be a lot of fun as a future Thor storyline down the road, though I'm not sure we're keeping this Thor long enough for that to happen. But I think that would be good.
Okay, so the second one I got, it's not really a particular story arc. It's more of a character treatment. So my favorite Inhuman, Karnak, throughout the whole of history, his deal is he was never exposed to the Terrigen Mist, so he's would you consider it like an inner battle type thing? I don't know. As I understand, I don't know. But so Karnak, he's a martial arts master, and he senses the flaw in all things, and that's without going through Terrigen. And he's kind of been like in the classic runs, he's kind of like the old wise advisor type. What would you call that? Cliche of sorts. He's a master strategist and all of that. Well, post Secret Wars, Warren Ellis hopped on board and essentially revamped the character and almost turned him into he was essentially a sociopath. He just didn't give a damn in what he did, and he made sure stuff got done, whether it was with him, there's not really any gray areas. Someone either lives or they dies, and we saw that, and in that run, without giving too much details, he teamed up with Coulson, which would be amazing, and it's entirely doable now, to hunt down a kid, and he eventually ends up killing a whole lot of people in gruesome ways. But I just really liked Ellis's imagination of the character. That's what I always call hoodie Karnak. So he's got the green hood, he's got like athletic tape type stuff around his hands, like a street boxer, underground fighter type guy. So yeah, it's not a story arc, it's more of a comic character design iteration that I would like to see in live action. And from the pictures we've seen, it seems kind of that way. They're not going the really big head and helmet type Karnak. They're going more of the Zen Master type route. And obviously we don't know how the character is. We haven't seen any trailers or anything like that, if he's going to be the sociopath smartass he is in the Warren Ellis run or what, but it's definitely something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, and I feel like Warren Ellis really did not recreate the wheel with that. He took characteristics that I feel like have always been somewhat present in Karnak, and he just cranked it up to 11. Like he took the arrogance of that character and ratcheted it up. And so, yeah, I'm totally cool with that version of Karnak. And I think we already seen a few signals that we're going to get a little bit of that, even just in the costuming. I mean, it's not, the version that you're talking about aesthetically, but it's also not the old, like, 60s, Jack Kirby style either. It's definitely in the middle. I think it actually stylistically is most like, I forget, I think it's Jay Lee. Is that right? The comic book artist. He's done a lot of Wolverine stuff.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think it's actually most like his version. But so yeah, that's cool. I'm going to do an unusual one. I have a couple here, but so I know a lot of people don't like the team-up events that have happened over the last few years. I really like Original Sin. So it's this storyline. They'd have to somewhat affect it because in the storyline, it's about someone killing Uatu, the Watcher, and stealing his eyeballs to find out like all the information he has about the universe. This is where Thor becomes unworthy. But there's this whole, what's really cool about it is it's like a galactic detective story. It's like a whodunit, who killed the Watcher. And what I really loved about the comic is that they mixed and matched characters in really unusual ways. I forget exactly the team, but one of the teams they send out is like Ant-Man and Black Panther and Gamora. You know, like it's this like mixture of people that all have different motives and they're all trying to work together. There's a lot about Nick Fury and how untrustworthy Fury really is and what he's really been up to. And I think all of that is just really fun. I think that's a storyline that could keep us in the cosmic realm and continue to push that way without having to be like a Thanos galaxy ender. I think that it would be really cool to see these characters mixed and matched. And I like, Marvel's always trying to find new genres. I think it would be really cool to even do it like a film noir style where there's just this mystery and everybody's stabbing each other in the back. And for just one film, like most of the characters have sort of ambiguous morality. And Nick Fury, instead of being a straight up good guy, is a guy who's going to lie a little bit. And Black Panther is going to be someone who's only looking out for his interests. And maybe Scott Lang is exhibiting some of his, criminal tendencies. Like, I like that idea of doing a lot of like gray morality in a Marvel movie. And, maybe that kills some of the characterization in the films. But I just think it would be really cool to see that play out in a film. And so I would really love to see an Original Sin kind of storyline take place.
Absolutely. That was one of the ones I was thinking about. Original Sin and Annihilation both. Just because I think they would not really a Original Sin won't be, but Annihilation's going to be one of those epic space opera style movies where everyone really participates. I mean, there's no use in doing Annihilation if Infinity War's on. But I had the both of those on my list. The one that I'm really interested in is really any of the individual Squadron Supreme runs. They're essentially nearly identical. The newer stuff's kind of more. The Supreme Power Max run is very intense, but it's essentially what do you call it? It's the Justice League plus Mad Max. It's this group of superheroes kind of in the alternate universe type thing that the country's going to hell, and it's the dystopia type thing. The original one, it's really unique. They essentially take control of the world. I don't even know the bad guy's name. He takes control of them, and essentially they take over the world. Well, they become aware of what they've done, and to right the wrong, they take control of the world again. So it's kind of that thing. I mean, the second time around, they took control to right the wrongs, but at that point, it's kind of the moral dilemma. Do they take control? I mean, they're really the only people on this earth that can solve problems. The food shortages and all the people running amok and the factions popping up and so I mean, do they take control of society once more to right the wrongs, or do they try building the democratic process back up and so on and so forth? It'd probably be best suited for some type of movie. Obviously, you can do a TV show off of it. It'd either have to be a movie or I could see a Netflix series about it, but I just think it'd be interesting and kind of timely with all the fear mongering that's going on now. Obviously, even if it started pre-production tomorrow, we wouldn't get it in time for everything that's going on.
So, remind me, like, what characters are we talking with Squadron Supreme?
It's a blatant Marvel ripoff of the Justice League. You have Hyperion, Superman. You got Nighthawk, which is the billionaire playboy type thing that builds all the gadgets, you know, Batman-esque. You have Power Princess.
Oh gosh, Wonder Woman,
yep,
right?
That's Wonder Woman. You have the Wizard, which obviously is a Flash knockoff. You even have this, I don't even remember the name. There's Golden Archer. There is, I think Arcana's her name. And then they even have this, they have Tom Thumb. They have, what was I thinking of? They have Nuke, and that's actually a pretty touching part in the original run. You have Nuke. He's a 20-something showboat, and he has he does the radiation blast type things, but his parents end up dying because they contracted cancer from his power. So that's kind of one of the inner story arcs within that. Oh, and then they have Dr. Spectrum, which is a really unique character. But even in the original run, there's probably a dozen characters, but the main nucleus of the group is, if you picked it up, you were like, is this, what's this? Is this like the Dollar Tree version of Justice League or something?
Right.
But, it's just kind of the circumstances of having a superhero group in this not too distant future where, there's no government, there's none of this. How do they fix it? It's their fault that, it's not their fault that they're mind controlled by this dude from the future and destroyed the world under his sway or whatever. But they're left to pick up the pieces that they destroyed, and the people don't like it. They don't trust them because they destroyed the world once. Why should they have the power to go back in and fix it?
Right.
So that's kind of where that is. And I love the Supreme Power on the Max imprint. There's also a Dr. Spectrum spinoff. There's a Hyperion spinoff, and there is a Nighthawk spinoff. The Nighthawk one is perfect. It's obviously the Max label is for the 18 plus demo. It certainly isn't anything kids should be reading. But yeah, if you have time, if it's on Marvel Unlimited or whatever, read Supreme Power Nighthawk. It's amazing.
Yeah, the problem is they don't put any of the Max stuff on Marvel Unlimited because they know people get it for their kids.
True. Makes sense.
So Alias, the Jessica Jones run, none of that's on Marvel Unlimited. So it's kind of a downfall of the system, if you ask me. But
it is.
I also appreciate for why they do it.
Yeah, understand.
It's interesting. You were talking about that's kind of a storyline that's kind of out of main Marvel continuity, or at least doesn't interact as much with the world we know. One of the things, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, I love Neil Gaiman's 1602, which was a reimagining of the Marvel characters in the 17th century. And it's really kind of fun because, it's set up as just kind of a what-if concept. But then we get a sense that it actually is connected to the main Marvel universe, sort of tangentially. But there's a reason why all these characters exist in this time frame, and there's a problem that they have to solve, and it's sort of a pocket universe. And so I think that would be a lot of fun. I think we're to a point where people know enough about these characters that they could totally do some what if kind of riffing off of these characters. Something like this people would obviously know is a different continuity, and I think it would be really fun. I would like to see a few more standalone things. I've heard some people like Marvel Noir. I haven't read that yet, but anything like that, something that is a different world, a different universe that shows us these characters in a slightly different light. I think anything like that would be pretty fun. So, do you have any others on your list?
The last one on my list is one I've talked about before. It's probably my favorite comic run of all time, is the Immortal Iron Fist. And Charles pointed out earlier this week, one of the costume designers did confirm that was Dog Brother instead of Scythe in there, so I kind of have a feeling that we did get a version of Immortal Iron Fist, so we probably won't see it.
But that was, I mean, for me, that was probably the best episode of the whole show, though. You know?
Yeah, that was my favorite one. It's just you know, it's the I'll explain it quick if no one knows it. Go out, buy it. You can buy it in two two omnibuses or omnibuy or whatever the heck you want to call it. After Fraction and Brubaker step off, there is a pretty sharp decline. But yeah, essentially there's 7 cities of heaven. They combine every 77 years, I think it is. And they have a tournament. Each city has an immortal weapon: Iron Fist, Bride of Nine Spiders, Dog Brother, etc. The winner of the tournament, instead of appearing every 77 years, they get to appear on Earth every 7 years. So that's the purpose of holding the tournament. It's just really interesting. They did incorporate someone from later in the series too. How do you say it? Is it Zhao Chang? Whoever Louis Tan played. So he's essentially the agent of this demon type guy from the 8th city. That's a big spoiler alert, by the way. That essentially Louis Tan's Iron Fist character from the Netflix show and the comics, essentially his goal in life is to steal the eggs of Xiao Lao or whatever to feed to his master. So long story short, nothing we'll ever see on Netflix because it gets too mystical and kind of Lord of the Ringsy type stuff. But just the storytelling.
If they're listening to fans, though, they're gonna do it, right?
The guy, Iron Fist isn't really a character that has, that much many story arcs to pull from. You know, he's not like a Daredevil or an X-Men. You know, he doesn't have separate runs. You know, he has essentially his original series, and then he has Power Man and Iron Fist. You know, Heroes for Hire. That's about it. You know, so once Immortal Iron Fist came around, and then after Immortal Iron Fist, there was a run. I think it's only like 12 episodes. Iron Fist: The Living Weapon. It was all right. But I mean, even the current run now, they're essentially rehashing Immortal Iron Fist with another tournament type deal. You know, so I mean, that's kind of who the character is. You know, it starts getting into a point in the Iron Fist mythology where the Iron Fist typically dies at 33 years of age. So Danny turns 33 in this run, so he's dealing with, you know, he has to give up the Iron Fist mantle and all that stuff. But oh wait, he finds out that the Iron Fist before him, Orson Randall, technically still has, you know, the chi running through him, or he still has the Iron Fist power. Right. So, you know, he kind of battles that, and it's kind of, I mean, they could kind of take the show that way, you know. I mean, he left Kunlun the way it is in the show, you know, so who's to say he has to follow the rules and essentially die, you know, get killed when he turns 33 and give up his mystical powers. But
well, I mean, I think they could totally tie it in. The reason that Kunlun has disappeared like it has is because his failure to show up at the tournament, like, forfeited their time. And then they, like, you know, like, that could be a total setup for season 2, is somehow he finds a backdoor into Kunlun, and they said, you weren't here to fight, so we had to forfeit our place. And they, like, get him, like, last minute into the tournament. You know, when sometimes people ask why on our site or in other places people are so negative about Scott Buck. And I feel like part of the reason people are negative on Scott Buck is because they've read The Immortal Iron Fist and they know how good it is. And if you've read Immortal Iron Fist and then you've watched that one episode that kind of did the tournament, like, you just see how the results are so much diminished. You know, like, you just atrophied that storyline. And so I think that is why people don't trust Scott Buck. I think people would not feel as bad about Iron Fist as a show if they hadn't read the incredibleness that is that storyline you're talking about. You know?
Yeah, and you did bring up another good point. You mentioned Backdoor, and that's actually part of the story where the immortal weapons each find out that the actual leader of their city had built a portal to Earth, so the leaders could come and go as they pleased, whereas the citizens and so on and so forth could only visit Earth once every 88 years unless you were a member of Kunlun, you know. So that was another big part of it, where it eventually...
And you could see Madame Gao doing that, right?
Yeah, that, and, you know, they band together and essentially lead a revolution and overthrow UT for Kunlun, and that's when Li Kung takes over kind of as the whole thing. And that's another part where Davos is, you know, he's like the frenemy, you know, he helps them out in that session, you know, but then he turns around and wants to kick their ass in the tournament and so on and so forth. And Davos is the immortal weapon of I'm dropping the name. I think it's Kun Li, it's called. Who Kun Li is actually ran by the Crane Mother. So if Davos is the immortal weapon from this city that's run by the Crane Mother, you know, that's kind of points the direction of the final scene in season 1, where Davos is meeting with Madame Gao. At this point, if Madame Gao is not the Crane Mother, I'll just lose my mind. I mean, the writing's on the wall. It's got to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see her back. So was that your last one?
Yeah, that was my last one.
All right, let me run through real quick just the other ones that I had quickly on my list. I'd like to see a Secret Avengers. I know we're seeing a version of that right now with Cap on the run, but what I mean by Secret Avengers is the closest that we could get to the that lineup that they had for a while. I think it was a Bendis run where you had Cap and you had Spider-Man and you had Wolverine and you had Luke Cage and you had Spider-Woman. It was kind of like where they went for broke and they just put all of their most marketable characters on one team. And I would enjoy that. I would like to see particularly Spidey and Cap and Luke Cage. Obviously, that would take heaven and earth moving for Luke Cage and Cap to be on the same team in a movie, but I would like seeing it. I've got Kraven's Last Hunt on my list. That's probably not a surprise. A lot of people have been asking for that from Spider-Man. I think the challenge to it is the version of Spider-Man we have right now isn't ready for Kraven's Last Hunt. We're going to need to like put him through the wars for another trilogy of movies before he ever gets there. And so the challenge, I think, with Kraven's Last Hunt is you can't reboot with that storyline. You have to get there eventually. And so we'll need some iteration of Spider-Man to last to a third or fourth or fifth movie for that really to take hold the way it should. So, another little one, I would love to see an episode of Jessica Jones. There's a storyline with her and Rick Jones, who is kind of the buddy of Hulk and Captain America, and then later in life he really becomes like a drug addict and a loser, and he starts hallucinating. It's really an interesting thing that Bendis did in Alias. I'd love to see an episode of that on Jessica Jones someday, though I think it would be hard for them to retcon into continuity. But it might be fun if he was Rick Jones, but he never actually had the adventures of Rick Jones in the comics. So anyway, and then the only other one on my list, there was a recent issue in the last year or so of one of the Inhumans titles. I forget if it was All New or Uncanny, that explains sort of the powers of Reader. Reader is a blind guy who has the power to bring into reality whatever he reads. The reason he's blind is because his people from his community he grew up in saw that could happen, and they plucked his eyeballs out lest he accidentally read something, like if he read nuclear blast, he would destroy their population. And so they pluck his eyeballs out, and now he uses Braille. He has these cards with things written in Braille, but we discover, again, spoiler alerts, all he has to do is like put like pebbles on the ground in the Braille, and he can write a card and then read it with his fingers and then bring that to happen. And we find out that he's effectively omnipotent. Like, this character had always seemed kind of lame and small school to me. And then I find out that literally, if he can write it and read it, then he can go back in time, or he can, like, rearrange reality. Like, it's amazing the things that he can do. But he purposefully keeps that a secret. Like, he doesn't let people know that. And it leads this weird, like, tension where, like, you have someone with godlike powers in the room, but they haven't admitted to you that they have them. And I think that's really creepy and really cool. And it's made me love him as a character. And so if, Inhumans Season 3 wanted to bring in Reader and do that whole storyline, I would love it. But I have probably gone on to about that far too long.
No worries, man. We are, Soul did say we're seeing some new humans, man. So right now we've only seen the royal family, so it will be interesting to see what goes on, especially they're on Adelan, there's got to be all sorts of new humans scattering about and so on and so forth. So who knows who we'll see.
All right, let's go ahead and move into our mailbag. I'm going to start out with Twitter. We got some good Twitter response last week because of our episode, which was a Defenders death match. And Ed on Twitter had asked a really good question to Adam and the podcast. Which is a better hallway fight? Daredevil against the Dogs of Hell, or Captain America against the German Secret Service, or German FBI, or whoever it was in Civil War? Do you have an opinion on that, Adam?
Oh, that's a good question. Do we have to choose a best hallway fight? Aren't they all cool?
Well, you don't have to. I think that was just the question that was asked.
All the hallway fights are good. If I think I had to choose between those two, I'd probably choose Daredevil just because it's. I almost said just because it's grittier, but it's just he uses the chain and knocks out the light, and he's got the gun taped to his hand, and I just think it's better, more fun. I liked it.
Yeah, what I really love about that scene is that it gives you a sense of how terrifying it would be to experience Daredevil in real life.
Yeah.
Like, it helped me sit in the shoes of one of those bikers, and all of a sudden there's a guy who for some reason chooses to outfit himself as the devil, who's in a black hallway but still knows exactly what's going on, and he's whipping around and he has this Charlie Cox has this weird sadistic smile on his face for part of it. And it's just like, it's so awesome. It's just, to me, like it kind of defines that character for me when I think about who that character is. So I really enjoyed that. He also had asked, do we have too many threads in the third pod of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D? So this is something that's been kind of building, where we've had a lot of loose ends on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now they're in space. It looked like the Superior was maybe being set up to be MODOK, one of the classic villains of the Marvel Universe. There's apparently some kind of Faustian deal that Coulson has made in order to be Ghost Rider for a little bit. We're still waiting to find out what happened to Nadir's brother at the bottom of the ocean. We still haven't seen Gravitron, or is it Graviton or Gravitron? Anyway, whatever his name is. Okay. Whatever his name is, we haven't seen him since the first season, and that's been hanging out there. I personally feel like Deathlock is a character that they've chronically underused. I liked him coming back in season 2, and I'm sad we haven't seen him since. So what do you think, Adam? Are there too many loose ends on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D? Do you think they can wrap them, particularly if next year is our last year of the show?
I think there are too many loose ends, but that's kind of a recurring theme we've seen in this show, that they've shown that they're not afraid to not tie it up, and it kind of makes sense. The the Marvel universe is so expansive, you know. I mean, talking about comics, even if we take the comics universe and take away the characters Sony and Fox own, I mean, you know how many characters that still leaves, you know. So I kind of equate that to essentially the existing MCU in a way, you know, that probably exists somewhere, we just don't see it yet, you know, the Richard Ryders or the Jen Walters or so on and so forth, you know. So it makes sense. I mean, Deathlock, yeah, I mean, we can't have everyone be the main characters in the show at the same time, so they have to leave some point, you know. I mean, I do think Deathlock should come back. I would prefer, I'd probably take Deathlock over Melinda May. I might get flack for saying that, you know, but
well, certainly over Joey, the guy who melts metal. Talking about loose ends.
Yeah, you know,
that guy, literally, he just left base one day. And there was like one line of like, where did Joey go? I don't know. I think he left base. And we never heard from him again, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking back to season 1. Wasn't there this shady business guy that was dealing in the Gravitonia or whatever the heck it was called? I think he was like
something
Quinn
like that.
or something like that. You know, we never, you know, I don't think that was ever concluded. There's just so much stuff that's out there. You know, I don't think, I mean, it's the type of deal, if we don't see the Superior again, you know, I think they might move on. You know, they just left it in such a big way. I mean, Phil Coulson's in space. You know how hard he's geeking out right now? He's in space. You know, seeing that next season, I don't think people are going to be thinking, oh, I wonder what the Superior is up to. Unless, of course, he's made into the big bad of the season, which could easily happen with MODOK.
Yeah, particularly if those guys that kidnapped them are AIM.
Yeah. You know, so there's a lot of loose ends, but, you know, that's just kind of how it's going right now. You know, where's that Hellfire cat? You know, didn't Robbie drag him away from that one fireworks stand fight? And then I don't think we ever saw him again.
And for me, none of these will ever be any worse than all the loose ends from the Incredible Hulk. You know, like where they'd set up for the leader and they left Abomination alive. And there was even like Doc Samson was like in that movie, even though Ty Burrell is like a superhero is not something I imagine now. But like, you know, like there's that movie and its loose ends bother me a whole lot more than anything on S.H.I.E.L.D. Because, I mean, it was so obviously set up for a sequel and they just never gave it to us, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Ty Burrell was in The Incredible Hulk. How crazy is that? He would be like a good, you know, he would be a good Mr. Immortal. That'd be a good spot for him.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, they're going younger, I guess, with New Warriors, though.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So going through our mail, Michael T. Ford said he agreed with you that he thought Daredevil would lose in a fight to Luke Cage. You both undercut your credibility, however, when you immediately brought up Batman, who is the greatest example in the world of how a guy with no powers can beat people with powers. So
that's when we were talking about the preparation. You know, I mean, having preparation. I mean, our tournament was the ground rules where these two people meet, no preparation whatsoever, and fight. They see each other and they got to fight, you know. So that's our rules. I mean, that's why you got to look at Batman. If you give someone preparation, if you give Colleen Wing preparation, she could take down Luke Cage. She could take down anyone, you know. So that's, I mean, Batman's the ultimate example of that. He's just some rich dude that makes kryptonite spears and yells Martha. Yeah.
I also would like to mention, I have long believed that Bullseye would actually be the best Luke Cage villain ever. You know, like somebody that had good enough aim that he could put a bullet through his mouth as he was speaking.
Yeah.
You know, like, anyway, that's a dream I have, to see Bullseye and Luke Cage fight on a Netflix show. I don't know if it'll ever happen. Also on Twitter, a guy named T, at Atlas Shrugged, spelled unusually, just said that Stick would win the fight hands down over all of them. I don't know if that's true, but I do feel bad that I forgot Stick as like a participant. I think I tried to do like 2 people from each show, but Stick should have totally been a factor last week in that hallway fight. So, go into our comments on the website. Love Waffle was saying he wants another death match with the Avengers. I think we'll definitely do that for you guys some point in the future. It'd be a little redundant to do it back-to-back weeks, but, I don't know. Back when we get to like November and we're getting bored and have nothing left to talk about, maybe we'll do an Avengers death match. He also compared an Iron Fist Misty fight to the famous Indiana Jones fight, where Indy just shoots the guy with the swords. And I think, that is how that would go down. Vanamir brought up MODOK, that it looked like the Superior was maybe MODOK because he did say, I'm designed only for killing, which is the DOK and MODOK. Chris chimed in, had some really good comments, did chastise us for hating on Iron Fist again. And he kind of suggested that we shouldn't not like Iron Fist because he's a man with emotions. And I just wanted to clarify, the reason I don't like Iron Fist is not because he has emotions. Because we watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and we loved the emotions of Rocket the Raccoon and of Yondu and Star-Lord. Like, that is a very emotional film, and it's great that it's emotional. I think my concern is that if you've been trained to be the world's deadliest warrior, like, you should have some kind of battle hardness. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not, the emotional part of it, that's the character and what he is, I mean, personally, Iron Fist is still, even how it was, I would probably say Iron Fist is still 2 or 3 on my list. I'm very high on Iron Fist. It'd be hands down number 1 if we got the stuff we were supposed to get. They turned Iron Fist into something he's not. He's not a grounded character. He killed a dragon with his bare hands. He has the spirit of that dragon coursing through his veins. It's just, he's not a grounded character. He killed a dragon. He's the protector of this mystical city, and they're trying to make him into a street level fighter, which essentially is in Heroes for Hire and as a character. But his whole background is this mystical thing, and they didn't give us an ounce of that. We saw the dude look into the cave, and that's what we got. We got one building of Kunlun from 3 miles away when he was working his stand on the peak. We just didn't get any of the mystical things about it, and that's who the character is. I didn't mind the emotional bit about it. I think if each one of us had to leave everything we've ever known to watch over a pass because we just killed a dragon, I think each one of us would be feeling all sorts of emotions. It's essentially like going through a second puberty. He's got this whole new power. I love that part of it. It kind of brings, it just brings contrast to the Luke Cages and the Daredevils. It's the immature, naive part of it. I don't mind that one darn bit. That was one of my favorite bits about it. That's the real part. The part I hated about Iron Fist is they're turning him into like a Daredevil who trained himself.
Right.
Iron Fist got trained and stuff, but it's a dragon. It's not whatever gym Daredevil box is at.
Well, and it is interesting because as much as we've had times where we've talked about Iron Fist and the things we felt like it was short on, in the end, we have 3 people on the podcast. 2 of them said, I loved Iron Fist. I was the third one, and I said, it was fine. If you would like to listen to podcasts where people really hate Iron Fist, I can give you the name of a couple. Like, I've heard a lot of crapping on that show. So, we don't hate Iron Fist. We just wish it had been a little different. That's all. Alvin had mentioned to us, if you guys listened last week, you know that there was like a weird 30 or 40 second pause in the middle of the audio track. That was my mistake. I'm sorry. I am not yet a professional podcast editor, and that was apparent last week. I chose to leave it where it was because I discovered it so late. I listen to some podcasts where they like edit and republish, and I get it 6 times in my feed, and I don't want to do that to you. So sorry about that pause. I hope most of you guys made it through it. And finally, Alex Silva was saying that I believe he said he's from Brazil. He loves the show. And he also mentioned that apparently, Adam, you sound like Bert from Big Bang Theory. So you did a little research, and do you think that's accurate?
I did research, and I'm like, man, I closed my eyes, and I'm like, oh man, I thought I was listening to the podcast. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I agree with that assessment.
Yeah, so thanks for sending your mail in, guys. Generally speaking, we love doing this podcast, and we like it even more when we know you're enjoying it and you're listening to it. And so please do us a favor and show us that love somehow. If you want to like it on SoundCloud, that's awesome. If you want to leave comments on the website, that's awesome. If you want to tweet at us at #MCUExPod, that's MCUExPod, that would be awesome. If you want to leave 5-star reviews on iTunes, that would be really good. It helps us become more noticeable so other people can see the podcast. Share it with your friends. Talk about it on Facebook. You can also comment on our Facebook posts when the podcast goes live on Facebook. All those things help us out. If you enjoy what we talk about and you enjoy the Marvel Universe, you should definitely stay tuned to MCUExchange.com. We've got all your latest news and speculation and all that kind of stuff. And we work hard to bring you not just the news, but the context around the news. And that means we give you commentary sometimes and hopefully spark conversation and thought. And so we really love working on the website, and we love you guys coming to it. We like you listening to the show, and we really want to thank all the people that send us stuff. If you want to contact me via Twitter, my Twitter is at Caleb A. Borchers. That's CALEBABORCHERS. And I'd love more followers. I have a pathetic amount of followers. Probably because I only tweet once or twice a week, and I'm trying to sell you on following me, but then I'll admit that I'm not great at it. But if I had more people reading, maybe I would tweet more. It's the chicken and the egg. So be the chicken and like me on Twitter or follow me, whatever it is. All right, I've done a terrible sell job of that. Adam, where can they find you on Twitter?
At Adam Barnhart. Follow us. Yeah, we have some good conversations on there. So it's like the MCUX pod after the pod all week long.
Absolutely. I know you could also follow Rhiannon. She's gone, but you can follow her at Shot of Patron. You can also listen. She has a cool podcast that she does all about Netflix and the Netflix Marvel shows called Super Ladies. That's Super Ladies, except for a T instead of a D. So you should listen to her show if you like Rhiannon's thoughts on stuff. And even if you don't, you should listen to her show so more people listen to it. So I think that's all we've got for this week. If you guys have ideas of things you want to talk about, we've been in a little bit of a lull where we're kind of having to come up with main conversation topics each week. If there's something you think we should talk about, let us know via all those ways I just mentioned. Thanks for listening. You guys have a great weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Bye.